2024 election coverage begins right now. That is right. The first candidate for 2024 has thrown his hat into the ring and officially announced that he is running for president. And that is, of course, one Donald John Trump. So we'll be talking about the speech. We'll talk about some of the reactions to that. And how many people got mad about the fact that Fox News just cut away from the speech 40 minutes in. So we'll go over that and where we go from that and what happens there. In other news, a Russian missile, which now may have been launched by Ukraine, crosses the Poland border and kills 2 on a farm on the east side. It does not look like this was foul play. In fact, this looks like this was an accident. But if the reporting is completely true, that means that the Ukraine has killed more people in the West than Russia has. And yet, we're not going to go to World War III over that. But we'll talk about that and what that means and where we go from there. The rail strike is back on. In fact, we've probably only got a week or two before we start to see some of the supply chain issues that are coming from that. So we'll talk about what happens there and what this means coming into the future. And Wells Fargo, MasterCard, and the Fed team up to deliver you a digital US dollar. It is going to be all this and more. Well, welcome into 2024 election season. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Good morning, everybody. Welcome into the show. My name is Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Oh, we have got a bunch of stuff to go over today. I mean, we're back to that point in the news cycle where just we can't get through everything, partially because changing in the season and I'm beginning up really late, and some of the things from the change in my life coming up. Last night was the first night in a while that I've slept, so of course my body's like, come on, just a little bit more. Come on, you could sleep a little bit more, please, come on. Come on, let's do this. And, well, here we are. So, my name is Jay Edgar. This is Contemporary. 2024 has started. Yes, as of today, we are officially in 2024 election season. You thought we'd get a break. I didn't think we were going to get a break. From the start of it. Realistically, 2024 election season started probably about a week and a half before the midterms, when the Donald came back out and said, oh yeah, I'm going to make a major announcement. It's going to be on the 5th. Actually, I could have swore he said the 14th before. Did he move that afterwards? Because I could have swore the initial draft said the 14th, but then it didn't come until yesterday to the 15th. So yeah, now we've got the hat in the ring and a speech that went with it. Now that's an hour speech. We're not going to listen to the whole speech. We've got the carefully curated section of the CNN put their carefully curated part of the speech out there for everybody to hear. I did listen to about half of the speech. How far did I get into it this morning? I got 25 minutes into the speech, and then I had to cut off so we could get contemporary started here. But there were some good points that were to be made from there. I did not get to the part where they promised the death penalty for drug dealers, but I'm going to talk about that as well. Even though I didn't hear it directly, I've heard enough people talk about that, and I know that was a part of the platform prior, because I've heard it at the rallies, I've heard it at the news conferences, I've heard it when the Donald was still the president, where he's talked about this. This is a thing that he's been talking about, and it's really just a part of a really, really old Carlin bit. Let's be frank about that. But yeah, we've got that. We got plenty of stuff to go over, that's for sure. Plus, who would have thought that Trump would be the big news right now when a missile literally flew into Poland and we were on the brink of World War III until somebody came up and said, no, it was Ukraine, we like them. Never mind the fact that they killed 2 people in the West, but regardless, yeah, there's that. And a digital dollar, too. So let's get into it. Let's get started. Before we do, make sure you guys go check out great programming such as the Daily Ignoramus, the Breakdown with Birkenhoff, the Porch Boys, the R-Rated Conservative. Go check out Overruled with KTZed, Tweets by Brit, Mr. Behavior, the No Gimmicks Podcast, and PJ Patriot, as we build a coalition of people who are dedicated to bringing you news from the common man for the common man. It is very important because these people who wear suits that cost more than your house, like Fetterwoman, by the way, and we'll be talking about that a little bit later too, they don't have to make the same decisions that you and I have to make. They don't have to go out there and decide, oh, do I have to go find a new job, a second job, or can I forego some meals? One of those decisions has actually been going on in this household lately, so well, we'll see what's happening with that. But yeah, go check out all that great programming. It's going to be a wonderful time. And by the way, because of some of the financial times, I do want to thank everybody who has dropped subscriptions, likes, occasional bits, watch the commercials over on Twitch too. You guys are the real rock stars here, and I'm very thankful for the fact of how many people are out here supporting the channel financially. It is why, even though I do have to change schedules, this channel is not going anywhere. It's probably going to be gone for a couple weeks. Well, the channel's not going to be gone, but I'll probably be off for a couple weeks as I adjust to a new schedule, which does put me at my regular 40-hour week job during this time slot. So we are going to have to go later on in the day, so possibly an evening news show at that point. But I trust that most of you guys will be here as well, especially from the attendance that I've seen while we do Ed's World Gaming on Monday night. So definitely the news will not stop, and we've got a lot of stuff to go over here. And I really do want to build a better news program for everybody. So with that, let's get down into the news. Let's get started. And we're going to start with the Dow, which tumbled throughout the day yesterday. It started up high. It jumped up, and then it tumbled back below its previous close. It did claw its way back up, and it did turn itself positive on the day, but just barely. So that is what we're seeing coming off of that. 33,592.92 is the official Dow close for yesterday. So we will see what happens with that. The futures are looking up right now, but you know, we see a wobble like that, and we do remember the fact that the futures being up doesn't necessarily translate into what's happening in the markets. Looking at your Bitcoin, that has tumbled off throughout the day, but a slow tumble off throughout the day, bringing itself down to 16,570.70. That is down $310 on the day, or 1.84%. Bringing this back out to the 5-day, does look like we are still in fairly steady range and still above where we started off yesterday. So, I mean, the news is not terrible. It's not good. Obviously, good news would be for every contemporary listener to have bought at the 15,000 mark and to have it shoot back up to 70, 80,000. That would be the best news. But that's not what we're seeing right now. It's still something that, again, I know that it's not one of those if you can't hold it or mold it things like Ron likes to say, but it's still a fun one to gamble on. I wouldn't bet the farm on Bitcoin right now, but I wouldn't oppose, like if somebody told me and said, hey, I just took $40 and threw it into Bitcoin to see what happened, I'm like, cool, I hope it works out well for you. And mostly that's because I've put $40 into Bitcoin to see what would happen with it. So, with that, that's what we have off of that. Looking at the gas prices at Madison. Continuing to watch, looks like we've seen another Slow decline. The Quick Trip on the west side is down to 340. The Exxon and the Speedway are to 360 out on the west side. On the Isthmus, it's down to 346. Entering the Isthmus to 348. So we're actually seeing some gas price drop, which defies all logic right now, unless we've got somebody out there flooding our market with stuff that actually completely defies logic. Even the BP out on Cottage Grove is to 369. So we'll see what's happening with that. Do be wary. Don't think that we're out of the woods yet here, because the Strategic Reserve draw is going to be drawing to a close. That is one of the things that's holding us down right now. So do remember, do make your preparations. Throw a little bit into the savings account and see if you can find ways to cut out your commute or cut out your spending on your commute, because we are going to see some raised gas prices again, most likely. I don't have a crystal ball. I can't say yes, but all the factors that we see coming from this say that by February or March, we will start to see some raise in that again. So we will see what happens with that and where that goes. Also, one of the things to keep in mind with this is on market push. When you're looking into gas prices here, and the fact we're coming into Thanksgiving right now, there is also possibly a push on the manufacturer side to possibly cut into some profits, which goes against all the rules of acquisition, because Thanksgiving and Christmas are both coming up, and people do want to travel for those holidays. What have I said from the beginning? The gas companies don't make money on base price. They make money on volume. They always have, and they always will. And the less you have to think about going up to that pump, sticking the nozzle in and saying, okay, honey, can we get some oatmeal cream pies? The less you have to think about that, the better they're going to be doing. So if they have to take a loss on the short term to get you filling up more and more, yes, that is going to translate to a better profit off of them in the long term. So that's what we see coming from that. Let's see what IBD has to say. From Investors Business Daily. Oh, an advertisement. Okay, why don't I have the close button on the advertisement? I really need to get a better graphics card and a higher resolution. Oh, come on. Alright, bear with me for just a second. Now they want to do screwy shit. I like using IBD as a resource, but sometimes they just do crazy crap like this. Okay. Dow Futures market rally keeps rising, but here's why the S&P 500 could pause. From Ed Carson. Dow Futures nudged lower early Wednesday, along with the S&P and the Nasdaq, with Target earnings in focus. A strong stock market rally Tuesday faded briefly, turning mixed after Russian-made missiles hit Poland. Target headlined Wednesday morning earnings, while chip giant Nvidia looms large Wednesday night. The stock market rallied on Tuesday on yet another tame inflation report, but Walmart earnings also helped. So did Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway, disclosing what it took that it took a big new position in Taiwan Semiconductor. Really? Come on. The major indices paired gains somewhat, but then quickly turned mixed on the reported Russian missile news, but the Dow recovered to turn positive again. In mid-afternoon Tuesday, stocks faltered on reports that Russian missiles hit Przywód. Come on. If you have that many letters in your word, you need more than 3 vowels. Come on. Przywód, a Polish village just across the border from Ukraine, killing 2 people. The crash was from a Ukrainian air defense system, according to NATO's chief on Wednesday. Setting aside said Poland missile crash, the market rally could be due for a pause after a strong run and the S&P nearing a key resistance. Still, Mercado Libre and Pure Storage cleared 5 points Tuesday, though Pure Storage stock backed off the official entry for a second straight season. Target, Lowe's, and TJX reported earnings on Wednesday, with October retail sales on tap that follows Dow Giants, Walmart, and Home Depot earnings early Tuesday. Walmart jumped 6.5% on strong earnings guidance and big buyback, breaking out from a handle buy point. Home Depot climbed 1.6, trying to forge a handle. Target earnings came in well below views, though sales narrowly beat views. The discount giant warned that the holiday fourth quarter, saying spending patterns changed in October at the end of fiscal quarter 3. Target stock dived more than 10%. Target rose 3.6 on Tuesday, but hit resistance in the 200-day line, close to a bottoming base buy point. Walmart, which jumped on its results on Tuesday, fell slightly. Lowe's earnings and sales topped views. The home improvement giant raised a full-year EPS and revenue targets. Lowe's popped 2% early Wednesday. Lowe's advanced to an 0.15 following Tuesday's Home Depot earnings, working on a bottoming base. TJX topped while sales slightly missed. Shares were little changed in pre-market trade on Tuesday. TJX climbed 2.9%, still in the buy range from a 10-month cup with handle base. Nvidia reports on Wednesday night. Nvidia rose 2.3% on Tuesday, adding to big gains over the past month, buoying the chip sector. Strong earnings and guidance from Nvidia, as well as chip equipment giant Applied Materials on Thursday night, will be important for the sector and broader market rally. Mercado Libre has joined IBD leaderboard and was Tuesday's IBD stock of the day. Albemarle is on the leaderboard watch list. Mercado Libre and Pure Storage are on Swing Trader. Pure Storage is on the IBD 50. On the futures, Dow futures lost 0.1, the S&P dropped 0.1, and the Nasdaq fell 0.15. The 10-year yield dipped to 3.77. Crude oil edged lower. Natural gas prices sank 3%. Amazon began cutting corporate and tech workers on Tuesday, according to the LinkedIn post from the affected Amazon staff. The e-commerce and cloud computing giant reportedly plans to cut 10,000 jobs. Amazon fell 1% overnight. On Tuesday, former President Trump launched his 2024 candidacy for the White House. October retail sales are due at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Economists expect the Commerce Department to report a 1% gain, or just 0.2% excluding auto and gas. October retail sales. They jumped up by 1.3% in October. Remember, overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. So, that is what we have coming off of that. Let's grab one. Just a couple more on finance here before we get into the big speech of the day. Because while we see retail sales up, we are seeing a lot of layoffs. And that's telling us that we might have found where the bottom is going to be from just the news. Corporate layoffs are a warning sign of coming economic crash landing, economists say. From Aaron Kliegman. 3 days after President Biden said the country is not anywhere near a recession right now, Amazon founder and chief executive chairman Jeff Bezos warned a sharp economic downturn is coming. The economy doesn't look great right now, Bezos told CNN on Saturday. Things are slowing down. You're seeing layoffs in many sectors of the economy. The probabilities say if we're not in a recession right now, we're likely to be in one very soon. The billionaire entrepreneur declined to estimate how long he thinks the recession would last, but cautioned people to prepare for a time of economic struggle. Take as much risk off the table as you can, he said. Hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. 2 days after the interview, several media outlets reported that Amazon plans to lay off about 10,000 employees in corporate and technology roles beginning this week, the largest cut in the company's history. Now, one thing to pay attention to with the retail sales is it looks like they're cutting middle management and coders. They're not cutting people on the floor. Because it does appear that they're doing somewhat well on the floor. Still. Amazon's decision was the latest in a string of recent corporate layoffs amid fears of a coming recession next year. Last week, Meta announced the company's laying off 13% of its staff. Meanwhile, Disney is planning a hiring freeze and some job cuts, according to an internal company memo obtained by CNBC. News of all three decisions came shortly after Tuesday's midterm elections. All three companies have been embroiled in recent political controversies, with critics accusing them of supporting Democrats and left-wing causes trying to censor conservatives. The recent flurry of layoffs extended before Election Day, however, roiling the tech industry in particular, but also extending from trucking to electronic cigarettes. Despite the wave of layoffs and several stark warnings that a recession is coming, Biden told the country last Wednesday that such a downturn wasn't on the horizon. We're not anywhere near a recession right now in terms of growth, Biden said at the White House the day after the midterm elections. I think that we can have most economists call a soft landing, and I'm convinced that we're going to be able to gradually bring down prices so that they, in fact, end up with us not having to move into a recession. Man, come on. The White House has echoed that message repeatedly in recent days. We're not in a recession, Ron Klain told MSDNC earlier this month. I want to be really, really clear on that. That same day, Press Secretary Token Diversity Hire said a recession was so out of the question the Biden admin wasn't even holding meetings to prepare for one. Yeah, we're getting a recession, by the way, just so you know. There are no meetings or anything like that in preparing for a recession because, look, what we're seeing right now is a strong labor market, she said. With 10,000 layoffs at Amazon. A strong labor market, you guys. However, economic experts have been warning a recession is looming. I think we're on the verge of a debt-driven economic crash landing, economist Stephen Moore told Just the News. These layoffs announcements are just the canary in the coal mine. We now have $1 trillion in consumer debt on top of $4.1 trillion of Biden debt. Americans hold nearly $1 trillion in collective credit card debt before the end of the year due to historically high inflation, which has caused everyday costs such as food to skyrocket. According to experts who previously spoke to Just the News, soaring inflation was caused by the Biden's economic policies, namely too much spending, combined with the Federal Reserve keeping interest rates near zero while continuing to print money. Now the Federal Reserve is raising rates to slow down the economy in order to combat inflation. Doing so, however, may push the economy into a downturn, even a recession next year. Still, the Biden admin and some economists remain optimistic that the economy can avoid such a fate with the so-called soft landing. Many projections, however, see the situation differently. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's happening, and it's a little bit scary. It's a little bit odd to look at. It's a little bit well, it makes me wary, definitely, because I've seen this before. But you know, the experts keep saying, "Oh no, it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. Don't worry about it. Just keep spending the money." Wage slave. But one thing to keep in mind with this, and this I think has less to do with the overall dropping in the economy right now and more to do with the overheating of the economy that was fueled by BlackRock trying to hold the housing market up. From CNBC, here's how much equity U.S. homeowners have lost since May. From Diana Olick. The historic run-up in home prices during the first 2 years of the pandemic gave homeowners record amounts of new home equity. Since May, however, the $1.5 trillion of that has vanished, according to Black Knight, a mortgage software and analytics company. The average borrower has lost $30,000 in equity. Homeowner equity peaked at $17.6 trillion collectively last May after home prices jumped 45% since the start of the pandemic. At the end of September, prices were still up 41% and equity was still quite strong. Borrowers who bought their homes before the pandemic collectively have $5 trillion more than they did before the pandemic hit. That translates to a gain of $92,000 more per equity per borrower than in February of 2020. While additional declines may be on the horizon, homeowner positions remain broadly strong, noted Ben Grabowski, Black Knight's president of data and analytics. But home prices began to weaken as mortgage rates rose in the spring, making it a lot less affordable to buy. The monthly payment on the average home with a 20% down payment on a mortgage is up nearly $1,000 since the start of the year. In 10% of major markets, including Vegas, Miami, LA, Phoenix, Tampa, and San Diego, homeowners have to spend twice the long-term average of the amount of a median household income to make their monthly payments. That's why home sales began dropping sharply back in May and why prices have been following suit. Home prices fell in September on a month-to-month basis for the third month in a row, though the decline wasn't as steep as July and August. While prices usually drop from summer to fall due to seasonal slowdown, they fell much more sharply than usual in 2022. And that's not good. And there was the big run up to people running out to try to buy a home during the pandemic. If I'd have played my cards differently, I actually might have been one of those people. But that's making the point where just your average run-of-the-mill family home in rural Wisconsin is $250,000 now. Whereas 4 years ago, when I was looking then, a lot of the same houses that I'm looking at now were $80,000, $90,000, $100,000. And it's going to weigh on some of the people. And a lot of this, by the way, is going to be the downfall of this economy. I know that we don't have the ARM, the adjustable rate mortgage crisis, that's driving people into foreclosures. But we do have the fact that people went out and speculated and said real estate and property always goes up and bought at the top of the market. There were actually people who bought homes at that time who are now going to lose everything based on that decision. But from CNBC, that's what they have to say. So we'll see what's happening with that. Let's get to, well, I'm pretty sure that you're all here for. And we're going to start with a video from CNN Politics. Fully curated to send their message. Watch Donald Trump announce his 2024 candidacy.
In order to make America great and glorious again, I am tonight announcing my candidacy for President of the United States. Thank you, Chris. Thank you. All of you. Thank you. Thank you. So many incredible friends and family here tonight. It's such a beautiful thing. Some people say, how do you speak before so many people all the time? When there's love in the room, it's really easy, if you want to know the truth. It really is. You ought to try it sometime. Together we will be taking on the most corrupt forces and entrenched interests imaginable. Our country is in a horrible state. We're in grave trouble. This is not a task for a politician or a conventional candidate. This is a task for a great movement that embodies the courage, confidence, and the spirit of the American people. This is a movement. This is not for any one individual. This is a job for tens of millions of proud people working together from all across the land and from all walks of life, young and old, black and white, Hispanic and Asian, many of whom we have brought together for the very, very first time. In order to make...
And I love this. The immediate next one that they go to is, fact check, I'm fact checking Donald Trump's 2024 announcement. A couple things and takeaways from this. Now, again, as I said at the top of the show, I've only listened to about half of the speech so far. I do intend to listen to the remainder of it later on today. My first take, and we all knew this was coming, first and foremost. Anybody with a pulse and a functioning frontal cortex knew that that's the speech that was coming when the Donald, who spent the majority of the first congressional term that he was out of office, obsessing over the fact that he should still be in office. And with supporters of his, like Sticks, like Tim Pool, who is, I think, a reluctant supporter of his, but with supporters of his like Kirk, like, who's another big one? Not Shapiro. Shapiro hates him. But even the big names coming out and all rooting for him to go back and run and saying that anything that he should do is he should run. And people talking about the fact that he should be president, this, that, and the next thing. With that, everybody knew what this was going to be. Everybody in the world knew what this speech was going to be. the very first take after I understood and could confirm that this is what this was going to be was, I would have waited. I'm going to say this right off the bat. I would have waited. Part of the problem with Donald Trump is the fact that he takes all the air out of the room. Now, with a most likely +1 in the Senate, because I know they're going to honk the hell out of the Georgia election, and Raphael Warnock is going to be in there. I don't have a crystal ball. I can't say for positive that Warnock is going to be. But even still, they've got enough seats right now, unless something major happens on a recount somewhere. They've got enough seats in there right now where the 50 plus one tiebreaker for Kamala is already controlled. I mean, at this point, the midterms are over. Even though the AP doesn't want to come out and say, well, that last seat ticked over. CNN, Fox, everybody else in the main sphere of politics has announced that the California seat ticked it over to 218. So we know who's going to be in control of both chambers of Congress as of now. And with that being said, the midterms are over. But now we've got this idea, and Democrats are going to do what Democrats do. Always. Whether it's 50 plus 1 or 51 to 49. Excuse me. Whether it's either one of those two, Democrats are going to overstretch. Now, I don't know that I would have waited until 2024 to actually make the announcement if I was the former president, but I would think that July would have been a better point of that for me, because by July, you've got the inflation from the Inflation Production Act. And the inflation, if they do manage to go through and judge shop and find their way into getting the student loan forgiveness done, I don't know if that's going to happen or not. But that is, by the way, still a possibility. And they're going to overstretch. They're going to viciously and voraciously try to force Roe down everybody's throats. And I mean, we've seen the bills that they're putting out. This is not a, we'll put a basic guideline out there of 6 weeks, 12 weeks. Well, let's go with 12. Let's go with 18. Because that seems to be what the developed world is. They're not going to put a bill out there that says, we guarantee at the federal level abortion legal up to 18 weeks. This is the codification of Roe. Viability. And if another state wants to take it even further than that and let them go up to the point of birth, that's going to be a states' rights issue. No. The bills that they have are always, and always have been, up to the moment of birth, crowning, and possibly afterwards, depending. We've read the bills. I mean, this is not something where they can go over on Twitter and say, oh, nobody ever wanted to have an abortion at 9 months up to crowning. We read the bills. Yes, they do. And they don't want anybody to question why. Now, they do have a distinction between viability and post-viability, but in the language in the bill is very clear. Yes, a doctor can perform this if he says he has a good reason, but he doesn't have to disclose his reason. Nobody can force him to disclose the reason. They're going to overstretch on that. They are going to overstretch on the spending, or at least attempt to. It looks like there's going to be a block coming from the House off of that, but I mean, there's going to be the screeching for more. They're going to take this away and think that they have this massive mandate to do everything that they wanted to do the first time. Or at least use the judiciary to go back and reshape, the Senate to go back and reshape the judiciary so, we can cram everything through and not have to worry about federal laws, federal courts, or federal blocking. Or block the bigger excesses of more Republican states. One of the problems with this, or one of the solutions coming out of this election, which I think had a lot of problems, the 2022 midterms that had a lot of problems, is that it gave Democrats a lot of rope. And I would have looked at this as a strategist for Trump, and I would have said, okay, they've got a lot of rope, So I know you want to come out and announce right away and start campaigning and start fundraising right away, but give it 6 months. Let them hang themselves. Because that's one thing that we know off Democrats is that when they think they have a mandate, even by the absolute slimmest of margins, they overstretch. A second takeaway that comes from this is the fact that people keep talking about, oh, well, he talked about, and apparently, I haven't seen this because I think that was on the later part of the speech. He's talking about the death penalty for drug dealers. Dude, that was a bad take from a Carlin bit from the early part of the 21st century. I think that special was in 2004. I don't know. Which one was the one where he did the, well, I guess he did the state prison farms, a few different bits of his, but the last one where he did the state prison farms, was that, no, that was 2002. So yeah, back in 2002, Carlin brought up the idea of, you know, you can slow down the drug traffic by executing the drug dealers. And then he went on into a wacky series of ways to execute drug dealers in public on the 50-yard line of the Monday Night Football game. A lot of them were kind of fun. I kind of enjoyed that. And while I agree that would slow down the flow of drugs, ending the drug war would do the same thing. So I don't think that's the route that the sanctimonious GOP wants to take, and I find it kind of ironic that the Donald says, "Run the sanctimonious." When he's running down that route. But those are my two takeaways initially from this, and we'll see what happens from the rest of the speech. Let's grab one from ABC. Trump announces third bid for the White House. From Olivia Rubin and Will Staken. Now, a few of the big detractors, the paid shills on Twitter, are pointing out that this actually might be the fourth bid, because I guess he took a run on the Reform Party in 2000. I would need to fact check that for myself. I don't know if that's accurate. Former President Trump has officially announced he's running for president in 2024, marking his third bid for the White House, saying, "We're a nation in decline, and America's comeback starts right now." Trump made the announcement on Tuesday in an address from his Mar-a-Lago estate in Palm Beach, Florida. The announcement, which Trump had been hinting at for months, comes as the embattled former president faces multiple criminal and civil investigations, and his party is grappling with a worse-than-expected showing in the midterm elections, raising questions about the former president's power over the GOP. Trump, who honk honk lost his re-election bid in 2020, but did not concede and has continued to spread false claims that the 2020 election was totally fair and free and nothing bad happened, Susan. Don't ban me. And by the way, he did concede. So that's a falsehood from ABC. He conceded much, much later than most people wanted him to. But yeah, on January 7th, he conceded the election. Just a reminder. The third presidential run for Trump, who transformed himself from a real estate mogul to a real reality TV star before becoming a self-described MAGA king, comes at an unprecedented point in American history that sees former one-term presidents who never conceded his election loss enter a bid to regain power from the frontrunner for his party's nomination. Dude, he conceded. Oh, I see. I see where ABC wants to go with this. This really has nothing to do with the announcement. They just want to keep dragging back out January 6th. Let's keep reading. Trump's election falsehoods culminated on January 6th in a violent attack on the U.S. Capitol that was carried out by pro-Trump supporters You have no proof of that, and the DOJ has not recommended charges for that, so I would retract that if it was me. For which nearly 1,000 people have now been criminally charged. The former president has repeatedly downplayed the riot and has vowed to pardon those charged in the attack if he becomes the president again. Trump is the subject of several federal investigations, including the January 6th probe, the investigation into the classified documents, and an investigation into his fledgling social media company, Truth Social. You know, using the DOJ to go after your political enemies. Some aides have suggested the former president believes that declaring his candidacy will shield him from the probes, but many legal experts say a run will not result in any special protections for the former president. Actually, in fact, it's probably going to make them go after him harder. In addition, Trump's namesake real estate business, the Trump Organization, is currently on trial in New York for tax evasion and fraud. Charges that would be affected if he's reelected president, or would not be affected if he's reelected president. The company has denied any wrongdoing. Trump, who was twice impeached during his 4 years in office, but was not convicted either time, maintains a tight grasp on his Republican base. 6 in 10 Republicans back the former president as their political leader, according to an ABC News Washington Post poll from earlier this year. In the lead-up to the 2022 midterms, Trump's super PAC poured millions into key races, and the former president wielded his political power by endorsing hand-picked candidates for major and congressional seats, including Mehmet Oz and Herschel Walker in Georgia. The former president ramped up his already busy rally schedule in the final weeks of the campaign, holding multiple events over the weekend leading into Election Day. But after at least 30 of Trump's endorsed candidates, including Oz, lost their races, many have begun to question his ability to continue winning elections for the party. Trump has already taken aim at potential presidential primary opponents, including Ron DeSantis, who on Tuesday cruised to re-election as governor of Florida. In a statement released last week, Trump attacked DeSantis as an average governor, saying DeSantis was politically dead until Trump endorsed him in 2018 and griping over DeSantis' refusal to say whether he'll run for president in 2024. So, again, as I mentioned as we were talking about January 6th, the ABC article here has literally nothing to do with the presidential announcement and everything to do with, hey, here's one thing that Trump did wrong. Here's another thing Trump did wrong. Ooh, scary January 6th. Oh, look at him. He's attacking Ron DeSantis. Ooh. And people wonder why nobody has any trust in the mainstream media at this point. So, that is what we have for that. You know what I should do? Because we seem to be having trouble with the chat here. I can... Let me change something here. I don't have any text on the bottom, so we've got this just open field right here, but let's see if that works better for everybody. Because now we've got the chat up on the screen for you guys. But anyway, going back to what it is that they're talking about here, it's... They don't want to talk about the future ideas. They don't want to talk about what's coming forward, which, to be fair, Trump doesn't either. He wants to go back and relive January 6th, or I'm sorry, not January 6th, but Election Day 2020 over and over again. I hate to say this, but unless there's somebody in his cabinet that listens to Contemporary, that's going to be his downfall. January 6th is over. I keep saying January 6th. 2020 is over. And it was over the day that Joe Biden put his hand on that Bible and says, I promised to uphold the thing, man. Thank you. Yeah. You know, so help me, that guy up there that I'm going to meet pretty soon. I hear you met Bo. Bo tells me he's a good guy. As soon as that day was over, any challenges were over as well. So, that's what we have for that. One of the things that I did note when we were picking this up as I was getting started here, I noted the fact that Merrick Garland was trending, and I opened it up for obvious reasons. And we see call to activism. Merrick Garland, if you're watching, hurry the F up. Kosciarella. Merrick Garland should pick up Trump right now from Mar-a-Lago. Trump being free to make an announcement from the location where he had stolen classified documents is an indictment of Merrick Garland and the DOJ. Don Winslow. Paging Merrick Garland. Garland, are you there? Garland. Because now the obsession is, now they have to go and arrest Trump. I don't know why, but they think that this is the thing now, is that they need to go and arrest this person. I've yet to see any evidence that a grand jury indictment has come forward that they can arrest somebody off of. But these people seem to think that there was. Lawrence Tribe, Trump's urgency to announce comes partly from wanting to get ahead of potential indictment in any of the several ongoing criminal investigations, but there's no way Trump can outrun DA Fani Willis or AG Merrick Garland. Announcing won't deter them. And the one person in the echo quotes, if your blood is boiling that Trump is announcing his candidacy for the president despite his coup attempt and role in January 6th attack, then you can thank Merrick Garland for his failure to prosecute Trump. I don't think they're going to arrest him. Well, actually, I do think that they might. Nikki Fried, who is Midget B's favorite politician. Today, I sent a letter to U.S. AG Merrick Garland asking for an investigation into allegations made by former President Trump surrounding his actions. During the 2018 Florida elections, Floridians deserve to know their elections are operating with integrity. So, they're sitting out here screeching, and they count down too. It's now 678 days since Trump's January 6th terrorist attack. Not only has Trump not been charged, he's actively spewing more election lies to delegitimize our democracy. Long past time for Merrick Garland to indict Trump. Dude, he broke these people. He broke these people. From the Daily Wire, third time's a charm. Former presidents who have tried again. From Michael Whitaker. On Tuesday, President Trump joined a small club of former presidents who sought re-election after leaving office. Trump's third bid for the White House is a cause for controversy both inside and outside the party. The former president is beloved by his base and reviled by his opponents in almost equal measure. And after a disappointing showing in the midterms, many in Republican circles believe Trump is too polarizing of a candidate to win. After the catastrophic pinko pox lockdowns, the riot on January 6th, and the defeat of many Trump-aligned candidates in 2022, honk honk, they consider him damaged goods. That's unlikely to stop him from trying, and he's beaten the odds before. Historically, though, former presidents have not performed well. 4 have attempted to make their way back into office. 3 of them failed to receive the party's nomination, and only 1 succeeded. While Grover Cleveland is a famous success story, the other would-be Democrat comeback candidate is rarely mentioned in the history books. Martin Van Buren served as Andrew Jackson's vice president during the populist Democrat's second term, before being elected as his successor in 1836. He was never as popular as his former boss, and after a major economic crisis at the beginning of his term in office, his star power never recovered. He was ultimately defeated in his 1840 re-election campaign by William Henry Harrison, who himself is best remembered for dying a mere 31 days into his presidency. Isn't he like the great-great-grandfather of The Pawn Stars guys too. Van Buren would attempt to secure the Democratic nomination in 1844, but he passed over the convention by James K. Polk, who would go on to win the election. He failed to secure the nomination again in 1848 and was enticed into a third-party run as the Free Soil Party's candidate in 1848, but only secured 10% of the vote. The Democratic nominee, Lewis Cass, lost to the Whig Party's Zachary Taylor. Now we come to the sole success story in past president redemption attempts. The man, the myth, the legend, Grover Cleveland. Cleveland was the first Democrat to hold the presidency since the end of the Civil War. After decades of Republican dominance, he won the popular vote every time he ran. In 1884, 1888, and 1892, but failed to receive the majority of electoral college votes on his second try. The parties were less ideological back then, and Cleveland's opposition to high taxes, loose monetary policy, political corruption, foreign intervention, and government subsidies actually made him an icon of fiscal conservatism in his day and induced a large number of Republican voters to back him in his first presidential bid. Cleveland's tenure was widely considered to be efficient but uninspiring. The president himself seemed bored with his electoral prospects. After clinching the party's support in 1888, Cleveland reportedly told a friend, "I sometimes think that perhaps more enthusiasm would have been created if somebody else had been nominated after a lively scrimmage." The Republican Benjamin Harrison, who amusingly enough was the second man in his family to defeat an incumbent president, was ultimately able to displace Cleveland into a retirement for a few years before he observed that Harrison's political coalition was beginning to weaken, at which point he easily secured the Democratic nomination and won a tight race against the incumbent in 1892. Forever cementing his historical legacy as the man who divorced the sequential number of presidents from their actual number. If you've ever wondered why Biden is 46 when there have actually only been 45, number 22 and 24 is why. So Cleveland, of course, is the popular one. Let's see, there was Taft, Roosevelt they're talking about, and the evil Woodrow Wilson as well. I don't know if he can do it. Looking from the outside, with the stack of media machine behind him, I don't know if the Donald can do it. But we'll see. From Insider, Fox News cut away from Trump's ramblings presidential announcement speech after 40 minutes. From Catherine Tangalakis-Lippert. During his rambling, hours-long speech on Tuesday, Fox News cut away from Donald Trump's 2024 presidential campaign announcement after approximately 40 minutes. The conservative news organization, which regularly promoted Trump's policies and hosted his speeches while he was president, cut away from the live remarks in favor of commentary about the former president's third bid for office. This looks like Trump is in as good a form as you've ever seen him, host Pete Hegseth said. If he keeps on like this, he'll be unbeatable in 2024, former governor of Arkansas Mike Huckabee agreed. This was an absolutely brilliant speech, the best I've heard him give in a long time. Fox briefly returned to Trump's remarks near the 1 hour mark of the former president's approximately 67-minute long speech, then cut away for more analysis by Laura Ingraham. CNN also aired Trump's long-anticipated announcement live, cutting away after he formally announced his candidacy. MSDNC, NBC, ABC, and CBS opted for regularly scheduled programming and skipped airing Trump's speech entirely. Though Trump now enters a field as the presumptive party frontrunner with more name recognition and cash reserves than his rivals, the former president faces an ongoing federal and state criminal investigations and wavering GOP support following the midterm red wave that failed to materialize. Because they're going to come back and editorialize this too. Yeah, I don't know what feed that he was watching for this, but I caught him after the fact, and he just kept scrolling back out to the point where he was watching and caught himself in shock over the fact that they cut away from the speech. From AZ Central, how cable news covered Trump's announcement he's running for presidency. They cut away from Bill Goodykoontz. Trump made a low-energy announcement Tuesday that everyone knew was coming. He's running for president in 2024. CNN derided the announcement, MSDNC ignored it, and Fox praised it to the skies. No, they didn't. Just like old times, it was a reminder that people who go on about the good old days don't have any idea what they're talking about. Trump began with his usual bluster. Is this marked as an op-ed? No, it's not marked as an op-ed. It is an op-ed. America's comeback starts right now, he said. For the record, 7:23 p.m. Arizona time, Trump made it official. He had actually filed the paperwork earlier in the day in order to make America great and glorious again. I'm announcing my candidacy for the President of the United States. I don't know if all that's going to fit on a red hat. Wow. Dude, I didn't pre-read this. This dude is a prick. Trump's speech was filled with lies, boasts, and misinformation, meaning a big comeback for Daniel Dale, the excellent fact-checker for CNN. Trump has not gotten more accurate, Dale tweeted. Subtle wit, that guy. On the air, Dale ran down several, but not all. There wasn't enough time. Misleading comments and lies the former president uttered. The big one, the one that will get the headlines, was Trump's implication that China may have meddled in the 2020 presidential election. The one that Trump lost to Joe Biden, leading Trump to encourage his followers to storm the U.S. Capitol! I can't do these lies anymore. The one that inspired the campaigns of unsuccessful candidates like Arizona's Kari Lake and Blake Masters. Trump played his greatest hit, I'm a victim. It was surprising the guests gathered at Mar-a-Lago where the event took place didn't hold up lighters. Yeah, this is an op-ed. This is not an accurate news story. So I'm not even going to deal with that. From The Blaze, Ivanka Trump getting commentary in this. Ivanka Trump does not plan to jump back into politics. While I will always love and support my father going forward, I will do so outside the political arena. Which, let's be completely realistic, you should have done the first time. From Alex Nitzberg. Ivanka Trump, who is one of former President Trump's daughters, has said that she does not plan to jump back into the political world. I love my father very much. This time around, I'm choosing to prioritize my young children and the private life we're creating as a family, she told Fox News Digital. I do not plan to be involved in politics. While I will always love and support my father going forward, I will do so outside the political arena, she said, according to the outlet. I'm grateful to have the honor of serving the American people and will always be proud of our many administration's accomplishments. I'm very proud of what I was able to accomplish, Ivanka noted. I left it all on the field and I don't miss it. Ivanka told Fox News Digital that she is extremely close to her dad. That hasn't changed and will never change, she noted. I had many roles over the years, but that of daughter is one of the most elemental and consequential. She also said, I will always love and support my father just outside the political arena. And she also did not attend the announcement and released a statement about it from Ryan Saavedra. Looks like actually this is a repeat of what they said over on the Blaze side, so we'll pass over this one. So, the campaign has started. The Donald is going to run for the nomination. I don't think that Styx is completely accurate on this one. Now, if you'd asked me 2 months ago, I'd have said, yes, this is absolutely the case. But now after the midterms and the contentious infighting, I don't think that as many states as Styx believes are out there, I don't think as many of them are going to suspend their primaries. And again, if you'd asked me this 2 months ago, I'd have said, oh yes, no. Almost every state that's not deep blue will suspend their primaries. I think that this is going to be a hard-fought primary battle. I actually think DeSantis is going to get out there, just based on what I have here. And I guess now it's time for us to pick up and start the 2024 campaign. Let's go talk about Russia, Ukraine, and Poland. By the way, because I'm still seeing the conversation about live chat in there, does that work for those of you who can't see it? All the live chat, does that work better to have that on the screen for you guys? Because I will change up my my card for that if you'd prefer. Alright, from USA Today, US and NATO investigate blast in Poland that killed 2. Biden says missile unlikely to have been fired by Russia. I'm going to start with the Bloomberg one, actually. You know, Ron Helton's favorite politician. Mostly because this is archived, so this isn't updated over the fact that now they think that it's the Ukraine that launched it, and it was totally an accident. U.S. official, Russian missiles crossed into Poland, killing 2. You know what this might be, actually, for the Restream bot? That might be a regional thing. I never thought of that because I don't know for how streaming and FCC guidelines or guidelines for the UK's edition of the FCC works, but I wouldn't be surprised if there was a censorship off of that. I'll look into that. I don't know if I can. I'll look into that off camera. U.S. official, Russian missiles crossed into Poland, killing 2. From November 15th at 9:40 a.m. UTC. A senior U.S. intelligence official says Russian missiles crossed into NATO member Poland, killing 2 people. Polak government spokesman Piotr Mueller did not immediately confirm the information, but said top leaders were holding an emergency meeting due to a crisis situation. Polish media reported that 2 people died Tuesday after a projectile struck an area where grain was drying in Przewodów, a Polish village near the border with Ukraine. This is a breaking news update. AP's earlier story follows below. Russia pounded Ukraine's energy facilities Tuesday with its biggest barrage of missiles yet, striking targets from east to west, causing widespread blackouts. A defiant Vladimir Zelensky shook his fist and declared, "We will survive everything!" That was German, not Russia/Ukrainian. Neighboring Moldova was also affected. It reported massive power outages after the strikes knocked out a key power line that supplies the small nation, an official said. Zelensky said Russia fired at least 85 missiles, most of them at energy infrastructure, and shut down power in many cities. "We are working. We will restore everything. We will survive everything," the president vowed. His energy minister said the attack was the most massive bombardment of power facilities in the nearly 9-month-old Russian invasion, striking both power generation and transmission systems. The minister, Herman Halushenko, described the missile strikes as another attempt at a terrorist revenge after military and diplomatic setbacks for the Kremlin. He accused Russia of trying to cause maximum damage to our energy systems on the eve of winter. The aerial assault, which resulted in at least 1 death in a residential building in the capital, Kiev, followed days of euphoria in Ukraine, sparked by one of the biggest military successes, the retaking last week of southern city of Kherson. The power grid was already battered by previous attacks that destroyed an estimated 40% of the country's energy infrastructure. Vladimir Putin has not commented on the retreat from Kherson since his troops pulled out in the face of a Ukrainian offensive, but the stunning scale of Tuesday's strikes spoke volumes and hinted at anger in the Kremlin. Now, as we were looking at with the USA Today, it appears that it's confirmed that these missiles were Ukrainian in origin. Though they were built by Russia, they were owned by Ukraine and launched by Ukraine, which really makes me question. You know, we're sitting in a day where there's supposedly 85 missiles firing off at Ukrainian infrastructure on the far east side of the country. Nothing really going out to the west side of the country like Lviv or anything else like that. And then just all of a sudden, magically, 2 missiles made their way all the way out to the west side of the country and out into Poland. Boy, that would be a thing to go pull the West into Ukraine's war, wouldn't it? Let's remind everybody of what's going on with this. Just a geography lesson. Since our friends in the LP tell us that we're not allowed to talk about something unless we can point to it on a map, let's actually point to it on the map. So, here's the Ukraine, and they're talking about where the red arrow is where they're striking the missiles. And also going, it looks like they're trying for Kiev, Poltava, and it looks like some of this is, and part of the reason that Moldova is probably worried at this point, because you know, there is part of the border that goes out there and stretches down in here. Does Moldova have a port? Yeah, a teeny tiny one. But they're talking about what's going on out here. And yet somehow all the missile firing, the 85 missiles are hitting here, and yet somehow we're talking about a missile that made it all the way over here. Let's actually look and see exactly where that is. What's the name of the town we're looking at? PRZEWODOW. Second map. So we're firing missiles down in this region here from Russia, who has to fire missiles from all the way over here to down here, and somehow one of them got loose, got out, and landed over here. Does something smell fishy to you on this one? Even before we start to ask the question of, oh, well, could this have been Ukraine? I'm starting to question right now, just looking at the map, whether or not this was deliberate by Ukraine to try to get the West back into this, because the Ukraine has been trying to get the West into this war from the day the troops started massing over here on the border. I also noticed that Google Maps, for whatever reason, doesn't have the disputed border for Kharkiv, Luhansk, Donetsk, Mariupol, and Zaporizhzhia, because there should be a dotted line going right all the way down through here, down to Kherson. Because this border is in dispute right now. It might have been Compass Dnipro too. But again, saying this now from the USA Today, US and NATO investigate blast in Poland that killed 2. Biden says missile unlikely to have been fired by Russia. From Josh Meyer, Michael Collins, Donovan Slack, Rebecca Moran, Francesca Chambers, and Jorge L. Ortiz. A missile that landed in Poland and killed 2 people is unlikely to have been fired from Russia, President Biden said late on Tuesday. It's unlikely. It's unlikely from the lines of trajectory that it came from Russia, Biden said of the missile strike, but he warned that more investigation is needed, mostly because he needs to find somebody to talk his way out of it being a Ukrainian thing. The U.S. government said its NATO allies have been proceeding with caution amid reports that a Russian missile crossed into alliance member Poland and struck a grain facility near the border of Ukraine on Tuesday. A statement from the Polish Foreign Ministry identified the missile as being made in Russia, but Polish President Andrzej Duda was more measured, saying, "It most probably wasn't Russian, but that officials can't confirm that or who fired it." Oh, I have an idea. "We don't have any conclusive evidence at the moment as to who launched this missile," Poland's president told reporters. "It was most likely a Russian-made missile, but this is all still under investigation at the moment." He added, "We're acting with calm. This is a difficult situation." A U.S. official with knowledge of the situation said late Tuesday that the circumstances are complex, and at this point the U.S. cannot rule out the possibility that the deadly missile or parts of it may have come from a Ukraine intercept missile that was attempting to halt an incoming Russian strike. So, again, and I don't know where their missile batteries are. I can say that, but let's do the one with Perzuidow. I don't know. So, most likely, you're launching from Kiev or somewhere over here towards Russia or towards a Russian missile that are being fired across this region here, and somehow one of them got all the way over here. Something doesn't smell right here. A U.S. official with knowledge of the situation, unnamed, said late Tuesday that the circumstances are complex and at this point the U.S. cannot rule out the possibility. Oh, we read that one already. Intercept missiles are attempting to throw off oncoming missiles by destroying them directly or causing them to go off course and miss their targets. The missile that hit Poland could have been an intercept missile fired by Ukraine in defense of the Russian air assault, or it could have been a Russian missile that was deflected by a Ukrainian interceptor, the official told USA Today. Biden expressed his condolences, offered assistance with Poland's investigation, and reaffirmed the U.S.'s ironclad commitment to NATO, the White House said. Do you know how much Article 5 was being quoted yesterday? When you attack one NATO member, you attack all NATO members. The Ukrainian flag crew wasn't waiting for details. They were ready to go send your sons and daughters into Moscow to go die for the cause, to go die for the blue and yellow. We agree to support Poland's investigation into the explosion in rural Poland near the Ukrainian border, Biden said Tuesday night. After a roundtable with world leaders in Bali, we're going to make sure that we figure out exactly what happened. And Joe, wake up. And then we're going to collectively determine our next step as we investigate and proceed. The missile strike comes as Biden and leaders of the world's largest economies had gathered in Bali for the G20 summit. Biden has been pushing world leaders to take harder line against Russia, including enforcing a price cap on Russian oil and gas. So, that's what we have on that end. Biden convenes emergency meeting. We were talking about that with the G20 because they were already at the G20. From Reuters, Polish president says missile that killed 2 was probably Ukrainian air defense. From Anna, I don't even know. Once again, if you have that many letters in your name, you need more vowels. A missile that hit Poland, killing 2 people, was probably a Ukrainian air defense missile, and there was no evidence to suggest the incident was an intentional attack by Russia. Poland's President Duda said on Wednesday. The announcement, which followed similar suggestions by the United States, was likely to ease global concern that the war in Ukraine could spill across the border. NATO ambassadors were holding emergency talks to respond to the blast on Tuesday that killed 2 people at a grain facility in Poland near the Ukrainian border, the war's first deadly spillover into the territory of the Western Military Alliance. From the information that we and our allies have, it was an S-300 rocket made in Soviet Union, an old rocket, and there's no evidence that it was launched by Russian side, President Duda said. It is highly probable it was fired by Ukraine anti-aircraft defense. Well, it's highly likely it was fired by Ukraine, but the anti-aircraft thing, I'm not buying, dude. I'm not buying, Duda. Polish PM Mateusz Morawiecki said that Warsaw might need to activate Article 4 of the Alliance's treaty, which calls for consultations when a country considers its security under threat. So we might still get into this war. I don't know. We'll see. Of course, we're also in the situation where the markets are roiling from this. European markets mostly lower as geopolitical tensions rise after Poland missile incident. I'm actually going to skip this one. This is a live blog. I didn't see that when I put it up here. Let's get back to this side of the country, or this side of the world, rather. From CNN, a third rail union rejects proposed contract, further raising the odds of a strike. From Chris Isidore and Brynessa Yurkovich. A third rail union has rejected a tentative labor deal, a move that further raises the odds that America's 110,000 freight rail workers will go on strike early next month. The rank-and-file members of the International Brotherhood of Boilermakers voted against a tentative agreement reached in September, according to the union and the railroads. The precise margin of the opposition to the proposed deal was not immediately available. The union represents about 300 workers who repair and rebuild diesel locomotives and railroad tracks. It is the smallest of 13 unions that represents more than 100,000 union members at the nation's major freight railroads. But if any of these unions do strike the railroads, its picket lines would be honored by the other unions, which would shut down a still vital link in the nation's supply chain. And again, I remind you that there are not enough rigs out there to go take up the mantle of what needs to take up if rail goes down for even a week. I mean, the former employer, who I will not name, might actually start begging Saint to come back to work. Hell, they might start begging me to go back out there because I have a CDL. They might start begging me to go back and get in a truck. They do not have the drivers, the vehicles, or the DOT capacity to take this up if the rail goes down for a week. The union represents about 300 workers who repair and rebuild diesel locomotives and railroad tracks. Let's see, we did that one already. The National Carriers Conference Committee, which represents management in the negotiations, says it was disappointed by the vote, but that since a cooling off period remains in place, the failed ratification does not present the risk of any strike or job action taken by the IBB and the potential for any resulting service disruptions until at least December 9th. Which means they pushed it off again because it was supposed to be this week that the strike started. The union's brief statement on the vote said it fully expects to continue negotiating further towards a satisfactory contract with railroad management, but the vote is a sign of the threat that the nation's railroads could grind to a halt in a matter of weeks, due to the difficulty in reaching a deal that will be acceptable to both frontline workers and the railroads. In October, members of the Brotherhood of Maintenance of Way Employees District, which represents about 23,000 track maintenance workers, voted to reject a similar tentative deal. So did the Brotherhood of Railroad Signalmen, who maintained the signal system needed to run the railroads. The two unions are set to go on strike as soon as December 4th. Does anybody have any popcorn? The no votes are stark evidence of the widespread anger towards the railroad management among workers and raise the bar on crafting agreements that they might ratify. The vote has been close at some of the unions that have ratified the tentative deals negotiated by their leadership. The two largest rail unions, representing the engineers and conductors who make up the two-person train crews, are holding their own ratification votes, the results of which will be known on November 21st. Each union rejecting ratification raises the odds that one of them could go on strike, which would be enough to shut down the four major U.S. freight railroads unless new deals can be reached that can win ratification votes. The only way to prevent a strike would be through congressional action that orders workers to stay on the job. So, and here's the thing that really gets me. Strategically, and only strategically, if this stretches, first off, if the strike happens on the Democrat side of this, before the new Congress is seated, well, we're in the lame duck session. Congress has two options, and neither one of them are good. Because it's Democrat controlled. They can either come in and say there's nothing we can do, and then they can be seen for the inaction that they actually have. There's nothing we can do, we can wash our hands from this, and we're sorry, go away. Or they can write a law that forces the rail workers to go back to work. Forcing people to work from the Democrat side. Boy, this has intonations of slavery, doesn't it? Like, yeah, we know your job sucks, but go back to work. You're now legally required by law to go back to work. On the other side, on the Republican side, this is actually a win-win for them if the strikes happen on the Republican side. Now, they can either stick with their anti-union sentiment, their non-union, I wouldn't say anti-union, I would say non-union sentiment, and say, this isn't our problem, you guys already hate us. And that actually, I mean, that looks bad from the outside, but that is a win off of them because that does crack the union side of things. And realize that the Democrats really offered nothing. But more importantly, any action that they take to try to make these things go better, first off, if I was a Republican, I wouldn't craft legislation that forced people to go back to work, but I would get down on the negotiating table on a Republican-controlled Ways and Means Committee and try to craft something better than what Biden and the Democrats were able to craft on the 222nd Congress. So Democrats right now are in a lose-lose for this, and Republicans are in a win-win. And it's an interesting position to see. The only real loser would be the American people. State of Freight from CNBC says chemicals industry warns that rail strike will shut down plants that cost the economy billions. Yes, it will. From Lori Ann LaRocco. The U.S. chemical manufacturing industry is one of the largest users of freight rail, shipping more than 33,000 carloads per week. And it is forecasting billions of dollars in economic damage if a labor deal isn't reached between rail companies and unions before a potential strike in December. A new economic analysis released by the American Chemistry Council estimates that a rail strike would impact approximately $2.8 billion in chemical cargo that is moved weekly, with a month-long strike resulting in overall hit to the economy of $160 billion, or 1 percentage point of the GDP. The ACC represents companies across industrial, energy, and pharmaceutical sectors, among other manufacturing niches including 3M, Dow, DuPont, Exxon, Chevron, BP, and Eli Lilly. Chemicals are among the most sensitive cargo moved by freight rail companies, and the first to be dealt with when there's a risk of a strike. Strike preparations, released by the railroads back in September when a looming work stoppage indicated the freight companies would start securing critical chemicals like chlorine for drinking water over regular cargo 7 days prior to the strike date. 96 hours before the strike deadline, all chemical shipments are no longer moved. AAR data shows that there was a drop of 1,975 carloads of chemical shipments during the week of September 10th, when the railroad stopped accepting shipments due to the threat of a strike, said Jeff Sloan, ACC's Senior Director of Transportation Policy. We would expect a similar dramatic reduction in chemical shipments if an embargo were to take place this month. All this to say that if they do go down, the American people are screwed. Rail unions struggle to get rebellious workers to vote yes on contracts, because of course they do, because they can't afford to lose the level of support that they're going to lose if they get this. More than half of freight rail workers will vote on a proposed contract next week amid a highly organized effort by some of their colleagues to urge a no vote. It's the biggest test yet of the Biden admin's push to avert an economically crippling rail strike after it helped a dozen unions broker a compromise with freight carriers in September. A rebel group, Railroad Workers United, is stoking opposition among members who believe the compromise greenlit by union leaders doesn't go far enough to address working conditions that have led to severe attrition at the nation's largest carriers. So far, 7 smaller unions have voted to approve their tentative agreements, while 3 have voted against, one as recently as Monday. Come on, you plebs, get in line! We, the union leaders, know better what you need than you know. Interesting take on the union. And one of the other industries affected, U.S. Chamber urges Congress to avert rail strike, extend Boeing 737 MAX deadline. From David Shepardson, Congress should prevent a potential rail strike and extend a Boeing 737 MAX 7 and 10 certification deadline before lawmakers end work for the year, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce urged on Tuesday. The largest U.S. business group noted that all 3 rail unions have rejected a rail contract since October and warned in a letter that a strike would be catastrophic for the economy, costing $2 billion per day. The International Brotherhood of Boilermakers, which represents about 300 rail employees, rejected an agreement on Monday. Railroads and unions have agreed to extend a potential strike deadline until at least December 4th. The chamber also backed Boeing efforts to waive a December deadline, imposing a new safety standard for modern cockpit alerts for the MAX 7 and MAX 10. The chamber said Congress should extend the certification deadline until September 2024 at the earliest. Boeing Chief Executive Dave Calhoun said last month he is confident that a plane maker will get an extension from the U.S. Congress. Boeing has gotten support from the major carriers like the United Airlines and Delta that have ordered MAX 10 airplanes and some pilots' unions. Last month, Roger Wicker unsuccessfully sought to include an extension to the September 2024 to a defense bill. Republican Representative Sam Graves, who is expected to be the next chair of the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, told Reuters last week that he supports the extension. It is not clear if congressional Democrats will back the extension. Well, we'll see. That's going to be a fun one. Alright, a little bit of election news, and then we will get off for the day because, well, we're going to run out of time before we get to digital dollar, which we do need to talk about. But, as I mentioned, and I didn't put this with the Trump stuff because, I mean, this is basically indication that it's over. Every other seat that's won after this point will just be padding what's already set to happen and what they've already figured out. From the Daily Wire, Republicans win majority in House, projection. From Dylan Burrows, Republicans have secured a narrow majority in the House of Representatives, according to a projection from Decision Desk HQ, ending the uniform Democratic control of Congress. The outcome was projected by Decision Desk HQ on Tuesday, 1 week after the midterm elections. While some races are yet to be decided, the Republican Party has met the 218-seat threshold needed for the majority. The Republican victory will also end the speakership of Nancy Pelosi, who has served as the second in the presidential line of succession since the Democrats took control of the House in 2018. That is not guaranteed, because the Freedom Caucus still seems like they are set to bomb McCarthy's run and guarantee Pelosi a speakership. On Tuesday, Kevin McCarthy secured a key hurdle to becoming Speaker of the House, but will still need to overcome opposition from within the GOP to be elected outright. According to roll call, several dozen Republicans backed Andy Biggs, who made the last-minute challenge to be the GOP leader instead of McCarthy. Republicans were expected to sweep the House, but following a series of honk-honk unexpected losses in tight races across the country, the margin of victory is down to just a few seats. Republicans campaigned on the state of the economy, inflation, gas prices, and against the record number of migrants crossing the southern border, and against woke leftist policies impacting the nation's schools. 538 estimated in the days ahead of the election that Republicans had an 85% chance of taking the chamber, though many believed it would be a significantly larger margin. So that makes this over. However, if you'll notice, for whatever weird reason, the Associated Press has declined to update that 218 number. In spite of the fact that the 218th race was called, they won't push that back up. No. We'll still let the Democrats get it. They might still get it. And the last one that we'll do today, is that the last one I want to do today? I think, yeah, that's the last one I want to do today. Top Maricopa election official launched PAC in 2021 to stop Republican candidates who questioned the 2020 election. Honk honk. From Candace Hathaway. Arizona's Maricopa County Recorder, Stephen Richer, created a political action committee in 2021 to defeat Republican candidates who questioned the integrity of the 2020 presidential election, the Post-Millennial revealed. In November of 2021, Richer admitted ownership of the PAC and spoke with the Arizona Mirror about why he started pro-democracy Republicans of Arizona. He said he hoped the committee would help elect Republicans who support peaceful transitions of power. The PAC's website, which includes little information, states that it is fighting to keep our democratic institutions alive by supporting pro-democracy Arizona Republicans. The website says the Arizona election wasn't stolen. We Republicans simply had a presidential candidate who lost, while we had many other candidates who won. Candidates come and go, it continues, but our democratic institutions, our long-lasting and peaceful transitions of power are a hallmark of the United States. We should not abandon this history in favor of conspiracy theorists and demagoguery. According to Transparency USA, Richard's Arizona Political Action Committee received $88,443 in total contributions. The PAC received its largest donation of $20,000 from Francis Najafi, founder and CEO of the investment firm Pivotal Group. Richard's PAC had $69,761 in total expenditures, with $45,000 going to defending Arizona values, a campaign launched by the Arizona Democrat Rep. Ann Kirkpatrick. Richard was elected as Maricopa County Recorder in 2020 and took office in January of 2021. Yeah, I would say that's probably a little bit of a conflict of interest. I mean, you've got a 5-figure, and it's not a huge PAC, but you've got a 5-figure political action committee dedicated to getting the election results that you want, and you're actually in charge of the election, I would say that's a conflict of interest right there. But I'm gonna be completely realistic with you. I knew from the first time I heard that there was a problem with the vote counting machines in Maricopa, I knew that Katie Hobbs had won at that point. Richard told the Arizona Mirror, obviously there are some Republicans who have courageously stood up and acknowledged the truth, and there are others who haven't. We would be supporting the former. We know there's a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow if you indulge some of these fantasies and some of these lies, and I think, quite frankly, that has motivated some of these speakers to be especially loud about it because they get rewarded in either Twitter followers or financial contributions from across the country, Richard added. So this is my effort to at least reward or incentivize people who do the right thing, the responsible thing. The 2021 article about Richard in the Arizona Mirror noted that it is rare for an election official to get involved in campaigning for elections that they will also be responsible in overseeing. Yeah, because it's a massive conflict of interest. There need to be some questions done about the 2022 midterm elections in Arizona, and possibly other ones. I want to see who the recorders are, who the secretaries of states are, and what they see in some of these tight races. Nevada, Arizona, Pennsylvania. Well, Pennsylvania, let's be honest. Dr. Oz had no right to be in that race. He shouldn't have been. Former Maricopa County Recorder Helen Purcell, a Republican who held the position for 28 years, told the Arizona Mirror in 2021 that Richard launching a PAC will likely lead people to question the election results, particularly if a race is close. Here I am! People are too skeptical about our election process, so stay above that fray if you don't have any questions, Purcell recommended. Richard stated that he was not concerned and did not consider his involvement inappropriate. Yeah, I've got a lot of questions about that. I have a lot of questions about that. Maybe we should be looking into that one. And again, I'm the one who said that the thing with Brian Kemp was wrong. Brian Kemp should not have been the Secretary of State of Georgia while he was running for governor. Katie Hobbs should not have been the Secretary of State for Arizona while she was running for governor. That was wrong in both of those cases. And now we've got a guy here who literally has a PAC raising money to sway the outcome of elections. Who's also the recorder in the county. By any means necessary, I guess. Yeah, I got a lot of questions about this one. But with that, we're done. We are out of here. But before we're out of here, I do have something that I'm thankful for to talk about. So, well, first off, I do hope that we figured out somewhat of a possible solution. I will see if I can bump the size of the live chat text up at some point. I don't know if I can, but I'll look into the settings and see if I can. And possibly see if there are other ways to get live chat up, because I've seen other like Twitch streamers use an on-screen thing and they can change the size of that. So I don't know if there's something that'll be native to, because I mean, if we get something that's native to Twitch and put it up on the screen, that's one thing to pay attention to, is the fact that it will take in all the rest of the Restream bot chat as well. I would prefer to use the native one. But yeah, if that's working to help people at least realize that there are other people chatting and that there may be some tech, I think that this, and I didn't think about this before, but I do think that a part of it, because Arbolt and Ron Helton were able to fix this by going into some of their settings. But to go back and see that the only other person that's having a problem is a person who's outside of the U.S. makes me wonder if that's not a local censorship issue on the UK's part for the Restream bot, because the person seems to be able to see all the YouTube chats okay. So I wonder if like Restream bot or something like that, or Restream.io in and of itself are somehow blocked in the UK. Yeah, Steven is busy setting up his show and going over the video that I just sent him from Instagram while I was getting up and getting ready to show prep about the JQ. I know he got a laugh out of that one. It was for whatever reason, I'm getting all kinds of Family Guy clips on my Instagram, on my reels for my Instagram, and you know how they like to talk about Mort. All right, something I'm thankful for. So a lot of you guys know, and I've talked about this before. I suffered an identity theft back in 2009. I don't really want to go over the details of how it happened. I do know how it happened and where it came from. But I suffered that in 2009, and it kept a $1,400 millstone hung around my financial neck for almost my entire adult life. I went in, looked, because I think a lot of people know that I am moving out of the particular area that I live in the near future. Part of the reason that we're going to change to a mid-evening to night show. I want to keep it somewhat early so like we don't cross toes with the Porch Boys or stuff like that. But we'll be changing times at some point in the very near future, and there are going to be probably a couple weeks where there's no contemporary while I get adjusted to the new schedule and get set for that. And I might even throw a couple practice streams out there just to get an idea on how much audience participation we get in there, and it might just be video gaming as well. That's not why I'm thankful for, though. That is cool stuff, and I like that. But what I've thought about and what I'm thankful for is I did make the thought at some point here. You guys know that I took... I can't believe I'm about to say I took the government money. I still hate myself for that, but I took the stimulus money, finally. The check that I cut up, they reissued, and I took that, and I put it in the bank, and I paid off the identity theft. It's all gone. And that was 60 days ago. So in the midst of the move, while I'm probably going to have to rent short term as soon as I get out to where I'm going to be, which is lame, by the way, in spite of the fact that I'm going to have to rent short term, one of the things that's coming out of that is I thought to myself, would it be easier and better to just skip the rental altogether, stop making somebody else rich altogether, and just buy something? So I'd started talking with a mortgage broker that actually had alerted me to the fact that the identity theft was on my credit and giving me such bad vibes on my credit. I don't usually talk personal details because it's easy to dox, but in my case, because of the jump in this, I will say where my score was before this, when the identity theft was still sitting over there. In September, my credit score was 577. As of yesterday, it's 651. Just getting that one thing off my credit completely changed my life. Do I wish I'd have done it sooner at this point? Yeah, probably. But am I definitely glad that it's off of there and I can do something with that? Yes, absolutely. Because now I can afford to live. And my pre-approval was for far, far less than houses in the market that I'm moving into go for. It's a step. It's a first step. And, you know, if I can go and throw X amount down or find places to get X amount down, then we're sitting in a better position right now. But yeah, just the ability to come back and say, I'm free and clear. When I find a piece of property that's in the price range that my mortgage broker says so, I can just pull the trigger on it right now. It's a weight off my shoulders. It's a millstone off my neck. I don't know what's going to happen in the next 90 days. I know there are still a few things that I want to fix, but yeah, I've managed to get everything. Because there were some other black marks on there too. Everything off my credit. And now I'm going down the market and down the road to perfect credit. And the only problem I'm having now is that the FJB economy has made it so I can't afford anything. But that's another road to cross. The first hurdle is gone. And I'm excited for it. I'm here for it. Let's head out of here. I already changed the scene, didn't I? So I don't have to go change that again. Alright, so with that, we're out of here. We're done for the day. Thanks everybody who came by and chatted as we went back to try to figure out the localization issues and things that are going on. Back to try to figure out that's my voice. I don't want to hear that. I don't like my own voice. That's genetic, though. Anyway, we're out of here for the day. Thanks, everybody. We'll be back here tomorrow with more news, more headlines. We'll talk about the rail strike. We'll hopefully talk about the digital dollar and some of the way that the world has changed now that the Donald has announced his presidency. Because I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of news about that tomorrow. One thing about the person who sucks all the air out of the room is now for the next 2 years, every news story out there is going to be about Donald J. Trump and what he did, and how they're going to go back and try to arrest him. So, we will see that. We'll definitely see some more things going on with that. We'll see what's happening with the Elon saga, which I haven't been able to get to, and maybe we'll even be able to talk about FTX. Because with all the election news, I've not been able to get around to that. And unfortunately, like some of my friends, I can't really go bump that up to the top because of certain questions that it raises either. So we'll hopefully talk about that. We'll talk about the digital dollar, the rail union strike, finances, how the elections are affected, and if the Associated Press comes down and calls the election out and gives it 218 for Republicans. It is going to be all this and more tomorrow over on Contemporary. We will see you then, and until then, I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.